Sorry, friends. My little wonder dog was upset that there was food being delivered. So we are going to finish chapter 29 of Zane and the Hurricane. This is part 2. Okay. So we finished right as True was telling Zane about Belinda and her growing up. So he says, all I can think about is Bandy, Bandy, Bandy. How much I always wanted a dog. How long it took me to persuade my mother to let me have one. How I kept asking Mom, and Mom kept saying, no way. I wasn't old enough to take care of an animal. And she was too busy because she works full time like that. No dog, no way. So quit asking. But I didn't quit asking. I made it my mission in life to get a dog. I took out books from the library about dog training and dog grooming. My mom kept shaking her head and saying books are great, but she wasn't about to change her mind. If I couldn't clean up my own room, how was I going to clean up after a dog? So I cleaned my room. I mean, really cleaned it, okay? Not just picked up all the stuff, but I vacuumed everything, washed the windows. That really shocked Mom. And that I'd wash the windows, but she wouldn't change her mind. So I went online and found the results of a medical study proving that owning a dog improves your health. Mom rolled her eyes. I wish you'd put all that energy and brain power into your schoolwork, she said, instead of wasting it on something that's never going to happen. So I did. I got all A's that semester, and a note from my teacher saying I was much improved. So Mom was totally amazed for once she didn't know what to say. And that's when I got down on my knees and raised up my hands like they were paws and barked. Arf, arf, arf. I'm a dog and you'll love me. Promise. Arf, arf, arf. And that was it. She caved. Although I didn't know it for sure until the next week, my birthday, when she woke me up early and said, rise and shine, young man, we don't have all day. And we drove to the SPCA, and there he was. This little ball of black and white puppy fur that crawled up into my arms and licked my face. Bandy, short for Bandit. He knew his name right away. Every time I said Bandy, he'd bark and wag his tail, and wag his straight up tail, like, yes, that's me. Mom said I could have him and call him Dirtbag, and had the same result. But right away, she loved him too. Because you can't not love a puppy. And when she saw him following me around and letting me out of his sight, she said, he's your dog, that's for sure. Bandy belongs to you and you belong to him. Don't you ever forget it, young man. Not that I ever could. So I'm waiting and waiting, my brain full of Bandy, Bandy, Bandy. And after about 1,000,000 years, Belinda finally comes out of the examination room with a smile. There's an old saying, when a good dog dies, the angels cry, she says. I'm happy to report that there will be no crying today. Takes me a little while to speak, but I finally swallow hard and go, so he'll be okay? Affirmative, she says. He had several shotgun pellets embedded in his chest, and he lost part of one of his paws. But a dog can get along on 3 legs almost as good as 4, especially a dog as low to the ground as Bandit. Mr. True put on his old battered top hat and tugs at it firmly in place and gives me a big grin. Told y'all this was my lucky hat, he says. Chapter 30, about my father. We carry Bandy to Belinda's house next door at the Last Chance Animal Shelter and keep him wrapped in the special blanket. He's really groggy from the anesthesia, and I'm worried he won't wake up. But he does, with a little whimper of recognition. I tell him what a brave dog he is, and he probably saved my life by getting in the way of that shotgun. But he doesn't seem to care about that. He's just happy to see me. People say you can't know what a dog is thinking, but that's pure baloney. Belinda's house is small and tidy, sort of like Grammy's, but modern. She says it would be more comfortable if the power was on, so the ceiling fans could move the air. But I don't care about the heat and the humidity. Compared to what we've been through, this is heaven. For the first time since the hurricane, we feel safe. Malvina helps Mr. True onto the couch so he can rest while Belinda fusses over him and makes him take a dose of antibiotics. The medicine is for large dogs, but she says it'll work just as well on humans. She tells us that he has sepsis, which is blood poisoning, and we'll have to watch his temperature, but he's a tough old bird. First, I'm a dog, then I'm a bird, he says. Make up your mind. That inspires Malvina to crack some jokes about dogs and birds. What happens when it rains dogs and cats? You might step in a poodle. Why do hummingbirds hum? Because they don't know the words. She goes on, but the jokes are so bad they hurt. Me and Mr. True are used to it now, but Belinda laughs so hard that she has to take off her glasses and dry them on her sleeves. I do love a sense of humor, she says, catching her breath. I can't tell a joke to save my life, but tell me, young lady, what were you thinking taking on that entire sheriff's department? Malvina shrugs. I was fed up, I guess. Belinda shakes her head in wonder. Girl, you are an itsy bitsy thing, but you have the heart of a lioness. As if on cue, Mr. True starts snoring. A moment later, Bandy is snoring too, and me and Malvina get into our fit of giggles because it's so perfect. Them snoring away like a pair of chainsaws. While the two of them sleep, Belinda heats up some water on her outdoor grill and makes yellow rice and beans and the most amazing cornbread in a big iron frying pan. The three of us eat our fill by candlelight, and it feels like a dream. A really nice dream where we're not running or hiding or being threatened. And then it gets even better because after the meal, Belinda goes out to her van and comes out with a cell phone that was charging on the van battery. This was a surprise. I had no idea. I punch in Mom's number. This time she answers. The connection is really bad. The cell only has like one bar, and I don't have time to tell her much. Not even what happened to Bandy, but this much is clear. Mom wants me to stay where I am. She's already on the way. She'll come to me. That's fine. I'm not going anywhere. I'm feeling really good about everything is working out until I catch a glimpse of Malvina in the candlelight. She tries to hide it in her eyes. She tries to hide it, but her eyes are wet, and it hits me. What a selfish goon I am. I'm only thinking about my dog, my mom, and myself. Me. So I tell her how sorry I am, and that the first call should have been to check on her mother, not mine. She says, no, that's not it, you stupid boy. She's not crying for her mother. She doesn't care about her mother. Her mother can rot in jail for all she cares. She's crying because she's happy for me, and that my mother is coming to get me, because it means I'll be leaving soon, and that makes her sad. And if I wasn't a stupid boy from New Hampshire, I'd know that. A person can be glad and sad and mad all at the same time. Now I feel really crummy because I don't know what to say to make her feel better. Belinda gently says, the boy has family here. He'll be back. Malvina folds her skinny arms right across her chest and says defiantly, how will he find me when I don't know where I'll be? Because you'll be here with me, Belinda says. You and Trudell, this is your home now. I said you were family, and one thing you're going to learn about me is I always say what I mean and mean what I say. Belinda puts Malvina to bed in what she promises will be her room to fix up any way she likes. Kaiser, please have a seat in your little perch. Sit down right there. Sorry. I bring a battery lantern into the living room and lay on the sofa cushions on the floor next to Bandy, who is still sleeping fitfully. Sometimes his legs move like he's running. I hope he's dreaming of squirrels, which he loves to chase. Not that he's ever caught one. Mr. True remains fast asleep too. A healing sleep, Belinda says, covering him with a light blanket and adjusting a pillow under his head tenderly. Trudell was like a big brother to me, she says, her voice a husky whisper. At times, my childhood was very difficult. You understand, he was always there, a calming presence. I feel bad we lost touch these last few years. My fault, not his. It's a blessing that I'll have the chance to make up for that now. He's a cool dude. He's a kind and lovely man is what he is, but you're right. He also happens to be a cool dude. Always was. There's something about Belinda that makes it easy to ask stuff, because the question pops out of my mouth before I have a chance to think about it. You said something about knowing my father. She shrugs and says, I knew him slightly. excuse me, we lived in the same neighborhood and went to the same schools, but Gerald was a year older than me. The Dupree in my class was the young man who would have been your Uncle James had he lived. That was a terrible tragedy what happened. For my whole life, I've been telling myself it doesn't matter who my father is or what he did, uh, or why he did the things he did, because he was gone before I was born. But it does matter. And I guess I always knew that way deep down. What happened? I asked. She looked surprised. You don't know? My dad never told my mother, and she thought he was from Biloxi, and Grammy was going to tell me, but then didn't have the chance. Belinda thinks about it. Maybe we should wait on Miss Trissy. Gerald was her grandson, raised like her own son. He was my father. Good point, she says. Everybody in the neighborhood knows the story. Why should you be the only one that doesn't? It's not right to keep you in the dark after what you've been through. Trudell told me as much. So are you ready? Here are the facts as I know them. Belinda explains that it was an accident, an awful accident. My Uncle James found a paper bag on the playground, and inside the paper bag was a gun, stashed there by a drug dealer, and that's what everybody assumed. Belinda doesn't know all the details, but James and Gerald shared everything, and James showed off the gun to his big brother, fooling around. Gerald tried to take it away, and the gun went off. Those two loved each other. She says, so everybody understood it was an accident, a terrible accident. There was never any question of Gerald being guilty of a crime. If it was an accident, why did my father run away? Belinda sighs. I don't know exactly, but I think it had to do with Miss Trissy. She was broke up real bad, you understand. Having worked so hard to raise those boys, and I expect Gerald thought she blamed him for what happened. For sure he blamed himself. Must be he felt he had to go somewhere and start over, which apparently he did. Because here you are, with the same eyes and the same smile and tall for your age, just like he was. So my father accidentally killed his brother and then an accident killed him? That stinks. Yeah. Yes, it does. But tragic accidents do happen in this world all the time. And we prefer to think that they happen to someone else. But sometimes they happen to us or someone we love. I hate accidents. I'm so sorry. Kitty cat, I need you to move. Boy, sorry. Hop down. Sorry. I hate accidents, he said. Understood. You have reason to, more than most. I'm only speculating about your father's motivations, but I don't know one thing. But I do know one thing. Sorry. You, young man, are no accident. You're exactly who he would have wanted you to be. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's a brand new day. There's no way I can sleep, not with this much to think about. And I must have passed out from sheer exhaustion or maybe relief, because the next thing I know, Bandy the Wonder Dog is licking me awake, and my mother is coming through the door with a cry of joy. She's driven night and day all the way from New Hampshire to find her foolish son that lost himself in a hurricane and take him home. That's the end. But there's one more chapter. It's called 1 Year Later. Let's read it. When I look back on it, the only thing I'd change about what happened is this. I wouldn't call the place Smellyville. That was childish and insulting to all the people who live in New Orleans or used to live in New Orleans. So much was washed away in the flood. So many homes and lives that 100,000 people haven't been able to return. One of them is my great-grandmother, Beatrice Jackson, Miss Trissy. She lives with us now, up here in New Hampshire, and has joined a church and sings in their choir. They wrote about her in the paper, about her amazing voice and the amazing story of her life, and like that. There aren't many black people living in this area, but Grammy seems to have found them all. Me and Mom are getting to know them too, which is really great. As for Malvina, she came to visit this past summer, and that was cool once she got used to it. I talk to her almost every day on the phone, and she's doing pretty good, all things considered, and still cracking jokes. The jokes are getting better, too. She lives with Belinda, who has been appointed her legal guardian because her mother came out of rehab and then had to go back, which is sad. Malvina says she doesn't hate her mom, just the opposite. She feels sorry for her, hopes she someday get free of the drugs. There's always hope. In the meantime, Malvina is really serious about wanting to have a career in comedy. You wouldn't think that a tragedy could be turned into comedy, but it can. That's the whole point. Like Malvina says, she has lots of material. Dead father, druggy mother, what a hoot. Lots of people wouldn't get it, but I do. Mr. True's been staying with Belinda too, until his new place is built in a block of new homes reserved for local musicians. But a lot of the time, he's on the road with one band or another. Some of them famous, like Kermit Ruffins, Harry Connick Jr., and like that. His friends sponsored this fundraiser in the French Quarter to help get him some new brass. And so much got donated that they gave that he gave away instruments to all kinds of other musicians, which was a beautiful thing. He and Malvina are still tight. I'm sure they always will be, because he saved her life by risking his, and she saved his by risking hers. You can't get tighter than that. In case you're wondering, Bandit made a full recovery. We got him a new prosthetic paw that slips over his wounded leg, and he can run full blast on all four legs and do everything he could do from before, like chase squirrels. Not that he's ever caught one. Mom says if he ever does, he'll make friends with it, and that's probably true. Oh yeah, Dylan Toomey. This is sad, I guess. About a month after the storm, he was killed by one of the underage kids who worked for him selling drugs. That's awful and all. But Grammy said it best when she heard the news. She said, "The wages of sin is when people do unto you what you did unto them." Amen to that. To be honest, there's a lot I don't understand about what happened after the storm and why some people were so good and full of love and others were so mean and hateful. But this much I do know. That day on the bridge, I was a proud African American. I was a white kid from New Hampshire. I was my mother's baby and my father's son. I was the one and only Zane Dupree. What a good book.